Happy Father's Day!
Happy Father's Day!
Happy Father's Day. So,
In father news. That's my dad joke.
We're good. We were trying so hard.
In honor of Father's Day, unlike Mother's Day, there's no real story topic we're going to cover, but more so over the idea of how our relationship with our father or father figure impacts our relationship with our Heavenly Father, and also vice versa. And one thing I just want to start off with is that it doesn't have to be your birth father.
Mm-hmm.
It can be anybody. For me, it's my grandfather. For some people, it's their uncles, etc. Did you want to add to that?
It's my dad.
Well, yeah.
There's a lot of different people from a lot of different family stories, a lot of which can be written very differently. But the importance of those figures are mainly for what they do for you. So even if your father or dad of the biological sense isn't the model of a father that you would like, and you do have the blessing to have a stepfather or just someone in your life who you consider to be a dad-like person, that's as long as they fill that role for you and do it to the best of their ability, that's all that really matters.
I know I definitely experienced that as being a student who moved from New York to Florida to go to college. I've got a couple of guys down here who have been a father figure to me while I've been down here, because they've been a mentor or just been, honestly, just an adult male figure, just at a time when it was just really good to have one. Someone who's just a voice of encouragement, or was just you doing okay? Just that,
right.
Just someone who is like that for me when my physical, biological dad is up in New York.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, even for me too, aside from my grandpa, it's also like my uncle. Both of those men in my life have been cornerstones for me. Showing me, making me see what I want to emanate as a man, what I want to be as a dad, as an uncle, as a grandfather, etc. Just to make sure that whether it's my own kids, my grandkids, in the future, one of y'all's kids or whatever, that I can be sure that I'm a good influence to those kids. And even going a step further, my relationship with my grandpa has also, the stronger our relationship is, the stronger my relationship with God is. Also, if you guys hear heavy breathing, there is a dog. Just so you know, it's not Jenny behind the camera. But just so you know. The stronger relationship I have with and I'll call him my dad, the stronger my relationship is with Heavenly Father, especially because we live in a society that's very much, that relationship is so important. The lacking of it, especially with a lot of the masculine pronouns we give God and are imminent in the Bible, there is that psychological effect. If you're someone who you have a very, very crappy relationship with your dad, and you haven't gotten to the point of forgiving, or you haven't gotten to that point of maturity to where you can see past it, your relationship with God can have issues and roadblocks in the way. I've experienced that, which is why I kind of speak for that side of it. Did you?
I was gonna say, it shows almost a spiritual reasoning. So I don't want to say that all the things that that God directs us to do, or directed people to do in the scriptures, had some specific applicable purpose. Sometimes it was just to test their obedience, but great majority of the time there's always something behind it. And I'm not gonna say, oh yeah, we need to take Old Testament law and apply it to our lives now. But just as an example, one of the 10 Commandments is honor your father and your mother. And that is deeper than just, well, it's your father and your mother, so you should respect them. No, it's directly connected and related to your relationship with God, because it's shaping you. And so it's shaping your relationship with those who are apparent to you. And so it's it's cool to see how this is a command, where it's like it directly impacts your relationship with God through helping you shape a healthy relationship with your earthly parents.
No, that's true.
Which is something we don't think about enough, especially high school, college age, sometimes middle school, but like it all depends on when you start becoming a little rebellious.
Mm-hmm.
Especially since there's no such thing as a perfect parent except God.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, we think to ourselves, you know, oh man, when I get older, I'm not going to do what he just did.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, especially, you know, so for guys, when we're looking at male figure in our lives, we honor and respect him for the good things he does, and the things he does that are not good, we look at him and we go, oh, I'm not going to be like that.
Right.
And sometimes we will refract, I don't know, we'll carry that over to our relationship with God, which is only natural because we work our, you know, understanding of things out of our experience.
Yeah.
And
our worldview.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
But we're not meant to.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're meant to look at God for who he is to us, and through the blessing that he is to us, and through an understanding that God is good. But yeah, so it's just cool that like this is like such an Old Testament thing that like, although, you know, yeah, no, we're not like bound by the law anymore. At the same time, you can still understand how that concept is still good for you. Yeah. And for your walk.
Most definitely.
Something that's also interesting too is I kind of talking about how maturity affects your relationship as well. Like I know growing up, my grandpa worked, and I was typically more so raised by my grandma and my mom. And because they were around, I was always closer to them in relationship, not because I wasn't any closer to my grandpa, just because, especially growing up when they're more readily available, you tend to be closer, just like in friendships and all that kind of stuff, right? The older I got, the better, in my brain, the better my relationship with my grandpa became. You know, I started, you know, valuing things more deeply. I was kind of leaving that sense of rebellion, that sense of I want to be alone. I don't want to, you know, I went from always wanting to be in my room and basically not doing anything to then, hey, let's do things as a family. Let's go out, you know, to a shooting range. Let's go out to, just go out to a restaurant. Let's go do that kind of stuff. And I think that sense of maturity also affected my spiritual relationship as well. It became more, there's a lot more hunger for reading the word. There's a lot more hunger for seeking God out, for finding where he is, for looking for him, seeing what he has to do with my life. Where does he want me to go? That kind of stuff. So that sense of maturity is super important. And I feel like relationships with your parents are always the best when you're older. And not to discount anyone who has great relationship with their parents growing up, but there's a sense of maturity that happens when you yourself become an adult, where you appreciate things your parents did. Like you were saying, like, you know, the rebellious stage, well, I'm not going to do that with my kids, whatever. I can name hundreds of things that I said that to. Or even just as an adult, and I'm seeing myself do it because I understand why. You know, like even as silly things of, I can see myself having kids be like, hey, get off the phone for a little bit. Whatever, you know, when I'm 11, I'm like, I'm going to be my phone off, you know, all the time. I don't care what you say, whatever, you know, and I'm like, I don't let my kids be on the phone all the time. It just that kind of silly. Why are you laughing?
Continue.
Please.
Let me have my sauce. You know, but seeing what's best for your kids and stuff is a lot more, is showing more love than we receive it as kids. So that's why I can understand that. And same thing with like relationship with God. There will be times where I really want something to happen, but it's not in my best interest. And God is not going to let it happen because he loves me. And I may not understand that until I can see it from that outside point of view, which for me anyway has been when I'm older.
I think that's kind of funny, just because I laughed. But no, there's a saying that as a geek is very funny. It's you learn to hate the villains as kids until as an adult you understand them. And it's only funny in the way as a kid you grow to think of your parents as a villain.
Mm-hmm.
And then you understand them. You're like, you're probably not that bad of a person. I'm sorry. But
Some
one
of us are still on our way there.
Yes, yes. One of the things that I definitely want to point out is in a family structure, I've talked to a lot of different parents about kids and the difference between little girls and little boys and as they grow. And they will always tell you that little boys are usually better younger and a lot more difficult older. Boys are, I got that mixed up. Boys are more difficult younger, harder older.
Yeah, that's what I heard too, or hear too.
Okay.
And then girls flip.
And then girls are flipped. I think I still messed it up in my speech, but we're going to continue. But the reason why I say this is guys, whenever they get to the stage where they do become easier, they do clash with their dad.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to bring it up specifically because with my dad, I was blessed to have the same dad as I grew up. And in high school, I had a stepmom, and we fought a lot. But my dad stood strong. He made sure whenever I butted heads with her, he made sure that I was also butting heads with him, and created a lot of friction between him and I, because I thought at that looking back on it, it was we were a team, and now he was fighting me.
Mm.
And it got to a point where I had graduated. I was still living at home. I was working, and we were still butting heads. And I realized that at that time, it wasn't healthy for us to be in the same house because he was trying to demand respect in the same place that I was trying to demand respect.
Mm.
And the fact is, as a dad, you deserve respect.
Mm.
Regardless of age of your children. Mm-hmm. Respect is due to the work that you've done.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's a beautiful representation of God and our relationship with him. It's not the fact that he is trying to pull the respect from you.
Right.
It's the fact of he does so much for us.
Yeah.
We should be wanting to give it to him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's just there's so many separate points I could pull up on the specific topic, but the one I want to actually focus in on is the fact of the respect itself. Is as at least myself and my dad, there was a lot of misunderstanding of respect, and we showed respect in a lot of different ways, but neither one of us saw it. Because we were looking for respect in the wrong areas. But I think as a son, showing respect to your father is just listening. I think a lot of dads are misheard or not listened to. And as even father figures, it's so easy to not listen. Because there's if we're going to go back to the analogy between God our Father and that relationship, there's so much he's telling us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it may not be a direct, hey Taylor, hey Jordan, hey Raph, but it could be just a gentle nudge. Mm-hmm. And sometimes we're so blind in what we're doing that we're unable to see those messages that he's giving.
Mm-hmm.
I think sometimes our communication with our fathers gets obstructed by like this general feeling of lack of connection. I think that I know that's happened a lot in my past, where like my dad and I, we're not at odds with each other. We're just not similar, which is just, it's just interesting. And I'm the only boy in the family. Like it was me and 3 sisters. And so it's just like, we lacked a lot of understanding on both sides, but we didn't fight. We just didn't talk. My dad realized very early on that like he did not understand this kid. Like Bill Cosby's dad said about him, "What's the matter with this boy?" Like,
what's the matter with this boy?
And so I can see how like for anybody, lack of connection in general can just lead to complete lack of both understanding and then communication.
Mhm.
Where, like, yeah, I think fathers really do want to speak truth and life into their sons and daughters, and like they really want to be that fatherly blessing. That's not just a workhorse that puts food on the table. I don't think any father wants only that, but I think a lot of them feel like that's as far as they can get. And something that a lesson I had to learn over the last year and a half was that the responsibility, or maybe that's the wrong word. Well, I guess that works, but responsibility of family doesn't all fall on the father's shoulders. You know, there's a part that the kids play in the relationship between the kids and the father. And so, yeah, you may have an imperfect father who hasn't done everything that maybe he could or should, but that doesn't mean that that should stop you from taking your steps as a child to either make amends or just to connect. It's something that I had to wrestle with and learn because, so again, like I said, I'm separated physically from my parents.
Was that yours?
Yeah, it's probably Holly calling.
That's okay. So like I'm separated geographically from my parents, and so I was getting upset that they were expecting me to call them, but they weren't calling me. And I was getting upset about that. And I remember I spoke to a youth pastor or young adults pastor, and he was like, well, I mean, you could think about it like this. It's the son who calls on the father. And so now I take that with a grain of salt because, again, you don't want to flip the conversation so that, oh, yeah, only the son calls on the father. But it's also that you have to keep... Jeez, I'm Taylor. But you have to maintain that understanding of, okay, I have my part to play. He has his part to play. And although he's imperfect and he may not do his part as much as I would like him to, the fact that I have a father is a blessing. You know?
No, absolutely. I mean, that goes down that relationships are two-way streets, you know? Whether it's earthly relationships or heavenly relationships, like our relationship with God, you know, he is always stretching out for us, but it also is up to us to respond, you know? And just like you were saying, like the kids need to play their part of responding. They need to play their part of also wanting a relationship with their dad, with their mom, with their siblings, with their friends, whatever, you know? Something that you were saying kind of trigger back. I read something a while ago, and I'm not sure what the actual like authenticity of this is, but I remember hearing it and it made me wonder. In typical East Asian countries like China or Japan, typically the father's role is like the breadwinner. They're typically they are the workhorse. They are the relationship between father and their kids sometimes are almost non-existent because of that cultural, you know, way of doing things and way of, you know, having their relationships. And I wish I thought about this before we started recording it, but there's actually like a syndrome of not having that relationship with your dad.
You know, I know exactly what you're talking about. I don't know the name either.
Yeah, it's a thing of like the dad is almost just there, but not as a dad, even though he's the dad. And that's interesting to me, and it makes me wonder almost how relationships with Christians over there, how their relationship with their father, with God is. Because kind of going with the theme of what we're talking about, our relationship with our dad, whether that be father figure, actual dad, you know, grandfather, whatever, is also a nice reflection of what our relationship with God is. So if in a country like Japan, where the relationships may not be what we think as relationships are, I wonder how that reflects on Japanese Christians, you know, Chinese Christians, Korean Christians with God. It makes me wonder for sure. There's not a lot more I have to add to that other than just curiosity. Really.
Yeah. There's I mean, we can bet our bottom dollar that there's a connection.
Yeah.
You know, at the very least, just from what we see in our own lives.
Yeah.
I mean, people are people.
Yeah, that's true. Doesn't matter what culture they are, they're still people at their heart.
And they still need daddies and mamas over there.
Daddies and mamas. Did you have more you want to add?
I think we covered everything I thought we should.
Okay.
We rounded about and saw the perimeter of the mountain, and then we climbed to the top of the mountain, and then we walked back down the mountain. So here we are looking at the mountain.
I really need Christian just to do a close zoom on your face. Slowly going around the mountain, getting top of the mountain. We see the mountain. Like, what are you talking about?
If it looks like a mountain, if it tastes like a mountain, if it smells like a mountain, it's most likely a duck. Shoot it!
You just see the mountain fly away.
My disguise!
Turns around and kills you because it's a goose. You call me a duck!
Well, what a great way to end.
That was our best attempt as dad jokes.
That was literally it was dad humor. It
was dad humor. That's
absolutely
fair.
was. It
Gotta do it
involved
right.
guns and ducks. Like,
Yes, when I think of my dad.
well, the very first thing you mentioned is fire
shooting
range.
range. Yeah. I mean, which is a fair point. Oh, it's hilarious. Well, anyway, guys, whether it's your actual dad, uncle, stepfather, father-in-law, or just someone who you see as that figure in your life, show them some love. Not just on Father's Day, but all year round. You never know how long you might have them. You never know how your day is going to look like, and you really need someone to talk to a few months from now. It's important to keep that relationship and showing love because we only have so much time. Why not?
It's true.
So that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. Things are going to be slowly changing a little bit around here with how we schedule things out. More information on that to come later. But we're still going to be here pumping out videos for you guys and having fun. And as always, don't forget to smolder.
See ya.